Okay, and the next big company we are having on stage will be Nordea Banking. And Sampsa will be talking about the evolution of banking and financing and how the role of banking is shifting. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here, represent the biggest Nordic bank in sort of kind of a, how could we say, in general banking in Nordics. We may have been a bit more a bank for large corp in our past, but our future is very much also with the SMEs, with growth companies, with startups, and that type of a customers. My presentation is pretty much about how we actually set up and are setting up our services for that customer base, not only in Finland but in Nordics and in Northern Europe in general. The picture, more or less kind of every one of us sort of know on banking is very much like this. It's something traditional, highly regulated, something where the bank has been more or less kind of the middle point of the financial action. That's at least the way it's been in Nordics and especially here in Finland. We looked this picture some 2 years ago, and although it was quite well functioning, we are turning around almost 10 billion euros in terms of annual funding turnover for small and mid-sized companies in this country. It's a pretty decent amount, but still not everybody is happy with this model, nor are we completely comfortable with what we are doing. And then we started thinking what should be done in a different way. And the way we see the picture, our services evolving going forward is more like this. The traditional lending channel will still remain at the center stage, at least kind of in an intermediate time horizon. But we're going to see more and more direct investment activities, something where we might be working as an intermediary or something where actually it's just kind of a direct sort of funding service provided by digital channels like crowdfunding, like our venture funding services, and those type of things where we just set up a sort of function through which corporates can actually seek for funding themselves. In addition to that, there's obviously more and more fund types of actions and activities and sort of a brokerage type of activities where we work as a kind of a intermediator in between investors and the SMEs. The latter part is something we started 1 year ago, and it's gaining momentum quite nicely. We call it Nordea Venture Funding. We have more and more companies now here in Finland active in that service, not only Finnish companies, also companies from abroad. They are here to look for investors, but also for people to kind of work as their mentors, be active in their boards. And our vision is that the banking finance is going more and more to this direction, where we actually work through multi-channel kind of a approach. We obviously have the traditional sort of lending and working capital management offerings, perhaps in the center stage still, but more and more it's about these kind of retail capital markets offerings and the services we're going to provide our customers with. The retail capital markets, as we call it, kind of a nickname in our bank, is something which is now more and more sort of here through digital capabilities by different vendors, and therefore it's obviously natural for us banks to be active in this space as well. But we have more and more active, like crowdfunding companies, different kind of venture capitalists. They might be more active in sort of mid-corp space, but through digital platforms we can offer this service for very, very small startups, even for companies who don't have business yet, but who have good people behind them, good idea, and maybe already a customer sort of with whom they have a pre-agreement or something like that. This is what we see more and more, and for this we're going to build the digital capabilities more and more. That's where our money goes into. The other thing we see and will see more and more is this kind of a supply chain networks where we end up actually financing someone, but we actually might have the agreement with completely different kind of a people or different company. Very good example is Meyer shipyard in western part of Finland in Turku, who has, I would say, a bit more than 100 subcontractors who kind of actually make the ships sort of happen basically. We could go these people individually, but instead this is something what we have built together with the shipyard and together with a few other external parties. So the subcontractors actually get funding, although they might not have a direct relationship with us. We handle the money for them through third parties. And this is the kind of a sort of funding ecosystems we're going to have more and more building up. Larger companies want to take care of their subcontractors. They want to make sure their funding is in order before they actually give them the job. So therefore we see this and this more and more an area, important area for us banks. And what actually makes all this possible and work is the fact that information is so much more easily available. You have basically instant access to information on cash flows, on kind of even external information on how these people are actually behaving, what the social media is telling about them, what kind of information you get out of these people, sort of not only kind of information regarding the specific project or specific supply chain, but their kind of a broader behavior. And this makes lending decisions much more spot on, much more easy, much more quick. Therefore, everything becomes almost instant, not yet, but they will become almost instant because of this availability of information. And this is also something we are building more and more together with external bodies. I'm very happy that there are also few startups or kind of a fintechs, perhaps as we call them, sort of here with us, very active in kind of a preparing this network to be there and kind of a fully and functional. Another element which is more kind of in the future, but as a side product of this instant world, this is more a side product of instant payments. Instant payments will be with us in next year or the year after, and they will actually have a bit of a kind of a side effect into the world of finance, meaning that as opposed to now when we have basically one day as a kind of a normal sort of day basis for any kind of a lending activity or basically interest rate period, this will change into kind of a market where there's also a market for intraday liquidity. And this kind of a world where you can lend certain amount of money for an hour, for a minute or a few hours, it could obviously be in theory handled in kind of a normal way with all those documents and all those things, but we all know that's not going to be a reality. The reality will be more something kind of through blockchain or kind of a other way of handling smart contracts and kind of a digital sort of both information but also kind of agreements between parties. So the world of liquidity will be also much more instant, but there will be a new kind of a market for intraday money, and that market will actually bring in a lot of new technology, a lot of new solutions, which we can then later on also apply into other forms of lending. Lending will become also more digital in terms of contracts applied in this area. Then last but not least, there's a bit of a picture on how we actually do mentor and take care of our sort of SME customers. You can basically describe the path in two ways. You can kind of describe the products, lending facilities, services we offer our customers with. And then you can also kind of tell a bit about how we actually inform these people, how we consult them, how we actually work as their partners. The topmost kind of a side of the arrow is more about the partnerships. Last year we developed a portal. It's unfortunately only in Finnish so far, but the free translation of the portal is basically how to become successful as an entrepreneur. It's a free portal. We don't charge anything about it. All information, all kind of services which are not only provided by us, it's also provided by a few other people are there, and there are increasing amount of fintechs also providing their services and kind of a help for those people who either are about to set up a company or have recently just set up one, but they basically need very much practical information on how to work as an entrepreneur, what you should take care of, how can you do it very easily, and how can you actually do it digitally. That is something we have been quite proud of, and we are not surprised that the number of users is kind of going nicely. The other thing we started last year was Nordea Accelerator, where we basically, it's a normal kind of a acceleration program where it's both for startups but also for people who are kind of looking to kind of get into new business and have a kind of a strong entry into the business. We consult those companies, let's say 6 months period, and then after that we also hope that they will get new contracts with our other customers, so we also help them in there. With some of those we had in last year's program, we actually are doing business together now as a bank. So it has been quite successful as well. Perhaps the biggest effort we are running in Finland is in Finnish it's called Kasvu Open. The pronunciation in English might be Growth Open. So it's a big national consultation program where we have companies from different parts of the country active in sort of increasing, improving, growing their business. We do free consultation for them in all our kind of main locations through this program. This year around 1,000 companies have applied. Of those, 400 will kind of enter in the first stage, and then there will be kind of stages following, so that in final we only have 20. But this is a year-long consultation project, and which will kind of then kick off each Christmas basically, and it will kind of commence in October. Then we are obviously very active in different kind of a sort of board member organizations, which is more kind of for perhaps bigger companies, but increasingly it has also become a arena for these bigger companies to be active in mentoring the SMEs and growth companies. So all these activities, they form kind of a family together through which we try to help the company, the small company into the next level basically. Then if we kind of go into our financing services for the similar kind of people, quite often when a small company comes into bank, the first thing they need has nothing to do with financing. It's more kind of just accounts, cards, maybe web bank, and basically information is what they need the most. But quite often the first financing tool they're going to apply is a simple overdraft. Their needs in the beginning are quite small, quite limited, and they basically just have want to set up an office, perhaps have a few computers and so forth, but needs are quite simple. But now more and more companies actually are looking for kind of a fast-track growth, also growth abroad, sort of outside our national borders or our outside borders of our Nordic national countries. And for those companies, especially Nordea Crowdfunding, which will be a crowdfunding platform to kick off in August, will be a very, very neat service. It has few functionalities none of the existing crowdfunding platforms yet have. For example, it is directly linked to Euroclear settlement. Bank lending is obviously something we still do, something we will be active in going forward. But the service we are perhaps the most proud of, if we talk about our achievements from last 5 months or maybe even 12, is the Nordea venture funding, where we actively activate our investor customers to become owners of our growing SMEs. That is the service which is perhaps gaining ground the fastest, and last few rounds we have actually been having difficulties in finding big enough spaces to have all the kind of the investors with us. So that tells a bit of a story on how that's progressing. But this is basically what we wanted to tell about our efforts in this space and how we are developing and changing our services towards digital, towards retail capital markets, and towards increased advisory for these companies who are looking for growth and who are kind of having big dreams in their eyes. Thank you.
Do we have direct questions from the audience about how to engage with Nordea? I have one. Can you go a bit more into detail into this Nordea Accelerator? For whom this accelerator is made? What kind of companies, which stage? How can they approach you?
We actually just closed the application round for this year's Accelerator Program. But obviously, if you have a good idea and if you are really interested in participating, you can contact me and ask about it. The main sort of target group is fintech companies, but we are interested on anything which is digital, which is around service, which is something which is kind of quite easily scalable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one question. Can we have one more question, please? Can you switch on the phone, microphone?
Yeah.
Does it work? Hello.
We can take it one-on-one.
Let's wait a second, maybe they bring another one. Yes.
Hello. Okay. There have already been some presentations about crowdsourcing, and some are still coming up in the afternoon. So, what's the bank's take into crowdsourcing that was mentioned in one of their slides? What's the special thing that the bank is able to provide there, and how do you position yourselves vice versa to these independent actors who are already in the market?
First of all, if I answer about the crowdsourcing, for us, crowdsourcing is actually more and more new way of working. More or less all of our new services are built by fintechs. We are using them more and more as our partners, and also kind of helping them in that way. Then how do our services differ in for example, in crowdfunding space from those kind of people we perhaps call a bit monoliners? The main difference is that our business is actually the customer, the corporate who is looking for funding. It's not the funding operation itself. And I think there is a big difference between those people who only make money out of the crowdfunding business. Our business is all things we do for those customers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And how I said before, you can see the reverse pitching on the website reversepitching.com, or you just go through arctic15.com and find it there. Thank you.